Everybody. How are we doing this beautiful weekend? Super stoked for the weekend here in Texas. It's going to be a nice weekend. Hitting that kind of winter, season. It's cooling down a little bit to like low 70s and stuff. It's nice. Humidity's gone a little bit, which is also cool. But how's everybody doing this lovely weekend? What's going on Instagram? Who do we have here? Technically a chatterbox. Welcome. Salem, we've got Ghack 9293, Saad Zabidi, something like that. The official claimer 300. Let's see, over here we've got Jay Spanks. Jay Spanks here on TikTok. What's going on? And then we've got Sandy with a bunch of numbers. Welcome everybody. YouTube, wake up. Let's see. Let's make some noise in the chats. Let's see who we've got kicking this weekend. All right. So today is a good day. It's always a good day when you're coding, right? But today is especially a good day because this week, coding and everything, it's just kind of reminded me of some very important tips that I've learned as a developer over the course of my learning to code and my coding journey. So I want to talk about just some coding tips that I've been thinking about lately that I think every developer, especially beginner developers, need to know. And it's going to help kickstart things for you a lot faster and writing good code, following good practices sooner than later. All right. So let's see. Let's just go ahead and start. And then after, I'm only going to talk for like 5 minutes or so. And then if any of y'all have questions about where to, get started as a beginner developer, about different programming technology stacks, languages, go ahead and leave some comments below. And for those, before we get started here, for you who don't know me, I'm Jason. I'm a full stack developer here at DevSlopes. I primarily work in the MERN stack, Mongo, Express, React, and Node. I've worked in a slew of other languages, but the MERN stack is my primary stack that I work with. And then DevSlopes is a learn to code company. So not only do I have the pleasure of building all sorts of really cool internal tools for our company, but I have the pleasure of working with students every single day, helping them learn how to code and then helping them get jobs and make money, whether that's, freelancing or getting a job. So it's very cool stuff. I love working with students because I'm a self-taught developer myself. So I know, how rough it can be trying to learn on your own. And so it's really nice to take my experience and cater in a way that will help others learn faster than I did. So, all right, let's get down to some coding tips. One of the most important things that I've learned in programming over the last several years is this programming concept, this term. It's called the dry principle. Does anybody know what the dry principle means? Hurry and comment below. What does the dry principle mean in programming? I'll give you a little bit. Any comments? Let's see. Dry principle, everybody. What is it? What is it? Okay. Y'all don't know, or maybe you're not typing, but it's okay because yes, Full Speed Media. Congratulations, you are the winner. There is no prize, but Full Speed Media says don't repeat yourself. That is absolutely right. It is one of the most important concepts or tips in programming that I think is the most important thing. So don't repeat yourself. What does that exactly mean? So when you are writing code and you find yourself writing the same thing more or less over and over and over, or you're using blocks of code that are copy and pasted, all right, you're repeating yourself. It's called wet code. You're writing wet code, okay? It's the opposite of dry code. And so you want dry code. And what that does is it makes your code more readable. All right. So I've seen code where there is, the same like object or variable that's copy and pasted into multiple, components of the application, or there's the same function or similar functions that are all doing the same exact thing, except for one little piece of information is changing between the two, or it's checking against one different variable. All right. So that could be coupled into a single function, all right, with maybe some different arguments, parameters that it takes, and then let the function do all that logic for you, right? And so dry code, all right, writing dry code. Don't repeat yourself. So if you are writing code and you kind of recognize, hey, I think I'm like copying and pasting stuff or doing a lot of redundant things. All right. That's called a code smell. And it's an opportunity for you to kind of sit back and say, I think maybe my code is getting a little, blown out of proportion here. How can I make it more modular, follow these dry principles, and make the code a little bit more leaner and proficient? So that is the first tip. Okay. Writing dry code. Don't repeat yourself. The second thing is what was the second thing? I was just about to say. Give me a second to think. Oh, if else statements. Okay. These conditional checks are great. Like if this, else this, do that. What I've seen a lot before and it's really with beginner developers, and it's okay. It's okay if as a beginner developer you're doing this because you're still learning. All right. But here's another code smell that you can pick up on. If you find yourself writing these if else statements or these switch statements, and they're just getting super bloated and out of control, like you've got an if else statement that's got maybe like 3 levels deep, like 3 nested levels of if else statements and all this stuff, and it's just getting really complicated. Okay, that's when you need to take a step back and maybe make a function that's doing these checks. But really deeply nested if else statements or very, very long if else statements. I mean, that's part of the dry principle. You're just repeating yourself with these checks. And one of the things to know about if you're doing so many checks with an if else statement, if else statements can't catch like edge cases all the time. It's really a very specific catch that it's going for. But if else statements can be misused and they can't account for all edge cases. So if you're trying to do validation and all this stuff, then maybe an if else statement isn't the thing that you should be building because there's so many checks that need to be done. And then also if you scale, let's say you're doing a form, if you scale the form, all of a sudden you have to put in more else if, to check the new conditions that are being added to this form or, feature. So be mindful of that. And that goes with if else statements and switch statements. Okay. Don't make them so huge. All right. And then the last tip that I'll go over here, there's so many tips I could go on. I have so many things coming to my head, but the last one that I want to cover is to make very specific functions that run a very, very specific piece of logic very well. All right. If you're writing a function that does something like updates a user or whatnot, and your function gets to be like 20, 30, 50 lines of code, that function probably is doing way too much logic. You should be writing functions that do a very, very specific task. All right. And if you do this, instead of writing these huge, massive functions, if you write specific, tightly coupled functions, it's a lot easier to debug your code because then you know where the bug is originating from. And it's a very clean, easy to read specific function, and you can go and modify it as needed. Okay. Instead of just having a massive function and then trying to debug something that's way too big. And it's also not scalable that way if more variables come into play that this function needs to do. All right. So to wrap up, dry principle. Okay. Don't repeat yourself. Second, what was the second one? Oh, yeah. Avoid the code smell. It's a code smell. If you're using these extensive, elaborate conditional checks, whether that's an if else statement or, switch statements, if they're big and out of control, okay, code smell, there's probably a better way to refactor it, make something more dynamic. And then the last one, oh my gosh, what did I just talk about? Somebody remind me what I just talked about. Whatever I last said is the last tip. All right, that's what you need to do. Sorry, guys. I've been coding all day. My brain's a little bit fried, but there we go. So let's take a few questions here, and we'll get started from there. All right. So I'm going to start with YouTube, move to TikTok, and then I'm going to move to Instagram over here. All right. All right, cool. Let's see. Over here, YouTube's a little quiet, but we still have some questions, it looks like. Is JavaScript React the fastest road to get a job as a freelancer starting from zero? So, I mean, you can freelance with many different programming languages, but yeah, JavaScript and React is a fantastic stack to learn to do freelance work. If you want to do websites and web apps, yeah, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. Also, be mindful if you're doing freelance work, most applications, most software these days have some type of backend. So, you're going to need to know API work. So, a very smooth transition into the backend when you're working with like JavaScript and React is Node. Node lets you write all your server-side code using JavaScript, so you don't have to go and learn another programming language. So you'll use Node as the framework for your server-side code, and then Mongo or MongoDB and Express for your like database and middleware. All right. So that's what I would recommend, and that's the MERN stack. That's what I do: Mongo, Express, React, and Node. What's your opinion on GitHub Copilot? I don't know. I've heard of Copilot. I have no idea what it is. I've never looked into it in my life. So I will look into that today, Martin. Hello, instructor. I have a question about a web developer should learn React.js and React Native or just one in two things. So React.js and React Native are different. Okay, they're different. React you can use to build websites and web apps. React Native is used to build cross-platform apps. Okay, it's different. You're building mobile apps with React Native. So you just have to make the decision, which one do you want to do? Do you want to build cross-platform mobile apps, or do you want to build websites and web apps? All right, and let's talk about the opportunity in both. All right, React.js is widely adopted in the industry. It is so easy to find a job as a React developer, and it's also a great technology to do freelance work. All right, React Native is not widely adopted in the industry. So if you were looking to get a job, there's not a lot of opportunity. The market's not as wide for a React Native developer. It's gaining some traction, all right, but it's better off right now, currently today, as a freelance programming language. All right, so it's really good for freelance. Joshua, I was contracted by Facebook. I now have to start preparing coding challenges that need knowledge of data structures and algorithms. I wish I had taken those seriously when I started coding. Hey, it's never too late, Joshua, to go back and learn that stuff. There's so much information online about algorithms and data structures, so it's all good, all good. All right, we're gonna hop over here to TikTok. We'll take some questions here, and then I'll cycle back. I'll get back to YouTube. Let's see. How to land your first job after graduating with a computer science degree. Jay Spanks, you've got to apply like crazy. All right. Also, the other thing is a computer science degree. I mean, it gives you a lot of theory on things, but what you're really going to want to stand out from other applicants is you really need a good portfolio. And that's one of the advantages of a self-taught developer is they've got a really rich portfolio of projects. And so with the computer science degree, I would strongly encourage you to go out and try doing some freelance jobs, get some real world projects underneath your belt, or even just start building some of your own projects, like Google some, beginner ideas of full stack applications, whatever you learned in college, and then build those projects, because that's going to force you to figure out how to build a project and to problem solve. And it's going to really help ingrain some of those things that you've learned. So, and don't look for a junior position. Okay. Don't worry about it. Just build projects, put them in your portfolio. And then when you're applying, just look for developer position for whatever language that you're going for. Let the company decide whether you're junior status or not or whatnot. Okay. And you're going to be rejected hundreds of times. Just, it's okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad developer. It just means maybe there's a few things to brush up on, and maybe it just wasn't a good fit for the company. All right. Let's see. Can you talk about new source code format and the language? A new source code format? I don't know what you mean by that. Let's see. What else do we have? Make your free course accessible, please. Are you talking about Udemy, maybe? I think Udemy just enables captions. Let's see. My girl, wait, what? I'm not going to answer that question. Let's see. Let's see. Does coding get easier after you practice a lot? Yeah, absolutely. Just like anything that you're learning, the more repetition that you have in it, you're going to get better at it. Trouble Bubble 28. But programming takes time. Okay. It'll probably take anywhere from 6 months to a year to be proficient with programming to a point where you can start freelancing or start applying for jobs. Okay. A few things to consider when you're learning to code is it's not a fast process. You're learning a brand new language. You're learning a brand new syntax, a brand new way of writing. Okay. And then you're learning a brand new way of thinking programmatically to take complex problems and break them down into small parts and come up with itty bitty solutions. Okay. So there's a lot of learning. And the best way to learn coding is I'm a self taught developer. I know this. You need at least an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, hands on a keyboard, slamming out code at least 5 days a week. Okay. You can't do it a couple of days, then take a week off. You are learning a brand new language. Okay. This takes time and loads of repetition. So just keep at it. Canceled this 76 said just signed up. That's awesome. Are you a millionaire? How did you retire at an early age? Not a millionaire, but I don't live paycheck to paycheck. I will say that. The developer salary, they're very generous. I'm very grateful for that. Learning to code has changed my life and the life that I can provide for my family. So if anybody's looking to get into code, I strongly recommend it. If you enjoy it, if you will be consistent with learning to code, I promise you it'll change your life. And as long as you don't have terrible spending habits. um, let's see. Do we need to have to learn calculus or complex mathematics? No, absolutely not, Kevin. To be a developer, basic math, like basic algebra is all you need. You do not need to be a mathematician for most programming jobs. Now, if you want to go work at NASA, Facebook, Google, maybe Amazon, like depending on the position, sure, you might have to be like a Harry Potter. You might have to be a wizard at math. Okay. But for, I would say like 90% of the programming jobs out there, you don't need to be a math wizard at all. I was a couple of years ago, I was a full stack engineer at Dell Computers, and that's like large corporate company. We're working on a pretty intense piece of software. The most basic math was all that was needed to build this tool we were working on. Let's see. What else? You don't need theoretical math. That's true. All right. So yeah, you can learn for free with documentation online. There's websites that you can learn from online for free. There's also, YouTube. Here's the thing that I learned from learning online free. Okay, I was able to do it. I was a self-taught developer. I worked my way through it, but it sucks. Okay, I wasted months learning things that wasn't relevant and practical to be successful in the industry. Okay, I didn't have any direction. I didn't have any coder friends or whatnot, didn't know any developers. And so I was left trying to figure this stuff out on my own. And if I would have just had some type of mentor or coach or a developer friend, I could just clarify a question with, say, hey, what about X, Y, and Z? And they could just point me in a clear direction. I would have saved months of time learning to code. It would have probably put me 4 to 5 months ahead than what it took me to get my first job and whatnot. So the cool thing is DevSlopes, we're a learn to code company. I'm the web academy. So I teach web development. Our web academy, I'm the mentor and coach. So I'd be stoked on mine to personally work with you, help you learn how to code. And then I even work with all my students how to get jobs. And it's really cool. I've got students in my academy already, haven't even finished the program. And I've got students making thousands of dollars freelancing, and then others who have already landed jobs and they're not done with the academy. So it's really cool to see their lives, transform in this way. All right, I'm gonna hop over to TikTok. TikTok, I'm gonna hop over to Instagram. Instagrammers, what do we have going on today? Welcome everybody from Instagram world. Let's see. Hello, dear Jason. How are you? I'm doing fantastic. Dry principle equals trim the fat. That's right. Trim the fat. Get rid of all that repetitiveness, bulkiness, and bloated stuff. Let's see. Omar, let's see. Jason, you talked about writing long, overly complicated functions. Yeah, don't write long, overly complicated functions. They're very hard to manage, maintain, and scale, and can be very confusing to read. So make tightly coupled functions that do a specific piece of logic, and it's so much easier to debug code, and then you can reuse those functions wherever you need to. What am I coding? So I work in the MERN stack currently. Well, I just wrapped up working on the Facebook conversion API. So I wrote a lot of backend code recently. So iOS 14, Apple stopped Facebook tracking and whatnot in it. All right. So I had to go and write custom code to be able to do tracking for analytics, because for our marketing team, it hurt a lot of things. Not hurt, it made a lot of problems because we didn't know how to properly serve our ads, because we weren't getting the analytics we were from Facebook before because of their iOS 14 update. So I had to go write a lot of manual code to trigger server events to track what y'all are doing on our website. So got my eye on you. Not really. My code does. Let's see. How likely am I going to find remote jobs in web development? So the cool thing right now, well, unfortunately, we're going through a pandemic, right? But it has opened up an insane amount of remote positions. So like I was working at Dell Computers, and we used to go into the office all the time. But then when the pandemic hit, we were sent to, work from home. And I worked from home for like over a year. And then I came over here to DevSlopes. And I've been working remotely as a developer for probably a total of like four-ish, five-ish combined years. And so it's really nice. And yeah, remote work, there's tons of it out there. Let's see. Is use reducer plus use context good for a new project in comparison to Redux? So I've been actually, I would say yes. So I've been leveraging use context. I actually just used it in my first production app, which is on the DevSlopes website. There's a part of the website where I use the use context for the first time. I've known how to use it, just nothing in production. But yeah, use context and use reducer I use. It's a good combination. And Redux, it has a set of design patterns that are very strict. So basically, once you use Redux in your software, like you're stuck with it for life. Like the way that it wraps itself and intertwines it with all your components, you're like stuck with it for life. And so, but it does have its benefits. All right, but use context and use reducer I've been using often. Let's see. Unit testing is required always. Why do we need to do it? Okay, this is a good question. Unit tests. Unit tests aren't required. All right, but it is so insanely helpful. So let me give you a real world example. How much time do I have? Let me give you a real world example of why unit tests are amazing, kind of exactly what they are. So a unit test is basically, say you build out a feature on a product, some type of app like a website, web app, whatnot. Okay. Unit tests will test the functionality of that feature. So it verifies certain data. Basically, what it does is when you write the feature and it works one day, everything's golden. If at a later time you build out another feature, you might break that other feature that you built a while ago. The beauty with unit tests is before you push the code to production, you run these unit tests to assure that your components and everything is working as expected. So at Dell Computers, what we did is we were building an internal sales tool. All right. And this, man, we were working like fast. We had to pump out results really, really quick. So every 2 weeks, every sprint, we were just pumping out all these results. But we ran into a problem because we pushed the initial product, okay? Then we needed to do some new features. Well, we added these new features and it was great. Those work, but it actually broke another feature that was in the app. And so it caused a lot of regression. So it's like here we are deploying new features, but then because we're deploying these new features, we're experiencing regression because we're breaking other parts of the application. So then there was a big team meeting and it was like, dude, we've got to get unit tests in here now. And it really saved the day, and it saved time, money, everything, because we weren't experiencing so much regression, because the app itself was tested. All the components had their own unit tests. Unit tests were ran to assure the functionality was correct throughout these features in the app before it was even pushed to production. So unit tests aren't required, but they are insanely helpful. And the DevSlopes website, actually, I've begun writing unit tests for it. So it's scaled to a point where we have some more interactive parts of the website. And as I was working on the API, actually, I was noticing it was interacting with other components. And because the data structures needed to change a little bit, I was breaking parts of the app that I didn't know that I was actually breaking. And so we've begun implementing unit tests to assure the functionality of all the different components that I've built. Anyways, that was a cool question. I've never been asked that. Thanks for that question, Kamel. That was cool. Let's see. I want to start game development in Unity, and read that C# is the best language for it. Yep, that's true. I've dabbled in Unity before, and C# is the language for it. And Unity game development is super fun as well. I really liked it. The whole platform, the assets, everything that it ships with out of the box is great. Let's see. Do you know about Quasar nowadays? I think I'm learning coding from Quasar, but it's difficult from School 42. And I don't know what Quasar is. Okay, so maybe I know what a quasar is. Like, I remember from some space show documentary that I watched, I think a quasar was like an imploding star that created this massive, like, vertical explosion or whatnot. That's the closest that I know what a quasar is. It's some explosion that happens in space that's massive. But that's all I know. All right, how much time do we have? A couple of minutes. I'm gonna hop over here to YouTube, and then we're gonna wrap up. All right. Let's see. Let's see, Joshua, you asked how easy is it to do data structures and algorithms with Swift? It really works. It's concepts and principles. So it really works the same across all programming languages. Can you update the web course on Udemy in a new version? No, we DevSlopes doesn't do Udemy anymore. We haven't done Udemy for a couple of years now. And here's why. The reality is, with Udemy, like, the people that finish Udemy courses is like 10% of people finish them. And what we really want to do is, DevSlop's whole goal and vision is to just change people's lives. And so we spent a lot of time coming up with a business model that can do that. And so now we have academies, and we provide an experience for people. So we don't just let anybody, enroll. You have to submit an application and apply to the academy to enroll in it. And then we review all the applicants and everything. And, for those that are serious about coding, they're enrolled into the academy. And it's crazy. It's really intense. I'm going to, review all of your code. I personally review your code, all your assignments. I hold live weekly meetups. I coach and mentor my students. I help work with them until they land jobs and freelance work. That's actually one of the requirements in the DevSlopes Academy, is you've got to make money. Okay. We want you to be successful. We're not just a little Udemy course that says, hey, follow along. It's like, no, we want you to put your skills to practical use. We want you to make money. We want you to change your life. And we want you to be real about this. So it's very rigorous, but it's awesome. It's for people who are serious about making career changes in their lives and are serious about learning to code, things like that. So it's good stuff. All right, let's hop over here to TikTok. I'm just going to start from the bottom. I'll take a couple questions from the bottom and move up just a little bit. Let's see. What did you plan to be in your career path anyway? That's an interesting question. So when I first had the idea that I wanted to learn how to code, I was first interested in iOS development. Okay, I'm a web developer right now. I was interested in iOS. I wanted to build iPhone apps. So I dabbled in a little bit of iPhone development, and I was like, maybe this isn't quite what I want to do. Maybe I should test the waters out with something else. So then I tested out web development, and I instantly fell in love with web development. And that's where I really learned all the concepts of programming. And then once I got good at web development, I did try iOS development again, since I understood programming way better. But I just fell in love with web development. That's what I do. And so for those of you who are trying to choose a career path in development, the first thing you really need to do is make a make a decision on what is it you want to build with software. What kind of software do you want to build? Do you want to do iPhone apps, Android apps, websites, web apps, AI, machine learning? Do you want to work on embedded systems, work for NASA? Do you want to do games? Okay. Each one of those paths is a different programming language. Okay. So pick a path that determines the tech stack that you should learn. How do you develop a game? Banana Pro asks. So there's a few different languages that you can use for game development. I'm a huge fan of Unity. All right, that uses C#. You can also build games with Python. Is another popular language for game development. And there's a lot of languages, but I would say Python and C# are traditionally kind of my go-tos when I think of game development. REST APIs. jQuery says, I like REST APIs a lot. I do too. All right. We're going to hop over here to Instagram, and then we're going to wrap up. Do we have any last questions? Nope. Just the Quasar question was the last question on Instagram. So that means I'll take one more from TikTok and one more from YouTube. James Charles, I feel like I never learned anything from tutorials. James, you're absolutely right. You probably don't. And here's why. Like, tutorials will show you concepts, okay? Notice that I'm using the word show you concepts, not teach. They will show you programming concepts, all right? And give you maybe a few minor examples of how and when to use them, okay? That's not really learning. Learning is going to happen when you decide to take those concepts that you've been shown and then go try and build your own project. There's something known as tutorial hell, all right, where people just spend way too much time in tutorials. And tutorials, you're not learning to think programmatically. You're not learning to think like a developer. And so you need to take those concepts that you've been shown in tutorials, and then you need to start building your own projects. That's going to force you to get on Google. It's going to force you to find answers and solve problems. It's going to force you to come up with your own solutions and create your own architectures. And that, my friend, is how you're going to learn, effectively learn how to code, is by building your own projects. All right. So anyways, everybody, we're out of time. So that's a wrap for today's stream. Again, I'm Jason. I'm a full stack engineer here at DevSlopes, and I also teach students how to code all day. I work with them to learn how to code and then how to make money by applying their skills to practical use. So if you're interested in some mentorship, some one-on-one coaching, code reviews, all that stuff, go to devslopes.com/apply. I'd be stoked out of my mind to work with you. DevSlopes has these academies for iOS, Android, and web development. All right. And then if you're interested in doing some really cool coding challenges, DevSlopes has these 30-day coding challenges. You can go to 30daycodechallenge.com and then enroll in the next JavaScript challenge that's coming up. And this is designed for absolute beginners. And if you have experience coding, it's going to level up your skills. All right. And on top of that, you'll have a mentor and a coach that you work with through the entire 30 days. And there's live weekly meetups that I'll be hosting. And so we can talk about code tech, freelance jobs, all that stuff. All right. So that's it for now. Until next time, stay safe, stay positive, keep coding. Adios.